Assalamualaikum. Hi, I'm Wardah bint Asri. Me and my group have chosen Maybank with its Murabahah products as our presentation assignment. So today, I will present my findings on foundation of Maybank Murabahah. As we know, Malayan Banking Berhad, which is Maybank, is a Malaysian universal bank and the largest of public listed company on Bursa Malaysia. Maybank also applies the concept of Murabahah as it is used as a mode of financing. So what is Murabahah? Murabahah in literally meaning is from word al-rib, which means increase in capital or profit of trading. Next, in technically meaning means sale in which the markup is disclosed to the purchaser as per the seller's purchase price for a trust sale for a certain specific. Murabahah also is a type of contract, a form of sale where the seller expressly mentions the cost of the sold commodity he has incurred and sells it to another person, which is the buyer, by adding some profits or markup thereon.
Moving on to the evidence of Murabahah. Al-Murabahah is a legitimate contract in Islam. Majority of fuqaha comprising the Sahabah, companion of the Prophet, the Tabi'in, followers of the Sahabah, and Imam of the Mazhab consider Al-Murabahah as a permissible contract based on rukhsah principle. Murabahah is a mode of financing as old as musyarakah. According to the hadith, some scholars made Murabahah analogous to a form of sale called tawliyah, which means sale at purchase price without making profit. As in the Al-Quran, there is a verse that speaks about Murabahah. First verse, Allah has permitted trading and forbidden riba. In this verse, Allah permitted all kinds of trade regardless whether it is barter trading, currency exchange trade based on debt, negotiation, or trust-based trade, while He prohibited all kinds of interest regardless whether it is more or less. Another one verse as in the Al-Quran is, "You who have believed do not consume one another wealth unjustly but only in lawful business by mutual consent." Opinions. The imposition of fees on Murabahah financing, which come next, will have an impact on determining the cost of item and selling price. According to Karim, scholar from several schools of thought, opinion on what charge should be added to the selling price of this item. As stated in the slide, there are 4 schools of thought. First, the Maliki school of thought. Second, scholars of the Shafi'i school. Third, the Hanafi school of thinking. And lastly, fourth, according to the Hanbali school of thinking.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Hafizah bint Usmani. I would like to share regarding the pillars and conditions of Murabahah.
Let's start it with pillars of Murabahah. There are few pillars that people should know. The first pillar is the seller. A seller or buyer refers to a person who exchanges their products for money in exchange for payment from the buyer. Seller in Murabahah is related to selling of items to earn profit from selling their products to other people or businesses. Basically, a seller is a banker where finance the purchase of products or goods required by the customer of the financing applicant with a deferred payment system. Second of pillars is buyer or mushtari. A buyer or mushtari is a person who pays for a service or goods that he intends to use for himself or resell once he has acquired the product or service. According to Murabahah, products exchange occurs when the buyer purchases goods from the seller based on the profit margin that the seller or bank has decided while purchasing goods from the buyer to the seller. Above all, buyers in Murabahah financing are customers who apply for financing to a bank.
Another pillar in Murabahah is merchandise or goods, and in Islamic terms is known as mabi'i. It refers to goods or services that are in the process of being sold on the open market system, such as a retail store. The seller must be labeled with a description of the goods before selling and must own them in order to make the buyer feel more confident to acquire the product. The third pillar is the price, also known as thaman. The amount of money required or given as proof of payment to the seller shows that the exchange involves money and goods. And lastly, the contract will often include the specifications of the items requested by the buyer, the willingness of the seller to obtain the goods, the purchase price, and the amount of profit offered to the customer or buyer. To be legally bound, all parties must also enter into a contract by offering and accepting the contracting parties without any riba. Offers and acceptance can be communicated in various Sharia-compliant techniques including oral, written, and other forms of communication. Next, we move to conditions of Murabahah. Since Murabahah is one of the styles of contract that based on Sharia, there are a few conditions of Murabahah that must be followed by all parties. The first condition is product and selling price. The product owner is liable for informing the prospective customer of the cost price of the goods, since the bank's capital determines the price to be paid by the second buyer. The product, including its type, number, size, and other characteristics, it must be precisely stated before being sold. Its costs and profits must also be presented straight straightforwardly and truthfully. The seller is responsible for communicating relevant purchase information. The second is contracting parties. The seller's responsibility is to provide the product that the buyer has ordered. During this time, the buyer is required to make payment for the product he purchased in accordance with the terms of the agreement. Both seller and buyer must be of legal age, logical, competent, and capable of accepting responsibility. The third of condition is offer and acceptance. The sale and purchase must be made with the consent of both parties, which seller and buyer. It cannot be traded based on hatred because it might be invalid if the sale and purchase are based on hatred. It must include the two critical elements previously discussed, namely the cost price and the rate of profit. The initial price must be fungible, which means that the price at which the seller received the products must be measured in terms of weight, volume, or the number of homogeneous commodities purchased. Hence, both parties will be satisfied with the financing and valid. The fourth is no riba trading shall be involved. The contract of Murabahah must be free from usury activities. If the buyer automatically pays for products traded using the barter system with riba items, it is not permissible for the buyer. Riba was also prohibited by the Prophet Muhammad SAW. Lastly, the initial contract must be valid. The seller must lawfully own the traded goods or property in accordance with Sharia rules before it can be traded to ensure that the contract is legal and cannot be held by anyone else at this time.
Assalamualaikum, I am Nur Amira Amalina. I will continue our group presentation with the current issue of Murabahah. The current issue of Murabahah Maybank Islamic Bank is Court of Appeal allowed Maybank Islamic Berhad appeal for summary judgment of 45 million ringgit and struck out counterclaim of 95 million ringgit in relation to a Murabahah financing transaction. On 6 January 2021, the Court of Appeal in Maybank Islamic Berhad v Golden Base Construction Syria Berhad and 2OS approved Maybank's appeal to enter summary judgment and dismissed the respondent's counterclaim in 2 appeals hearing concurrently. The contract between the two corporations intertwined with Golden Base Construction Syria Berhad received an 50 million ringgit Islamic Murabahah financing credit from Maybank for the construction of a roadway. The financing was structured on the Sharia principle of Murabahah, in which Golden Base requested Maybank to purchase underlying Sharia-compliant commodities Murabahah asset at a purchase price equal to the financing amount, and Maybank agreed to purchase the same Murabahah asset from Golden Base on deferred payment terms. The repayments were missed by Golden Base and the guarantors. Maybank filed a lawsuit before the High Court. In their defense and counterclaim, Golden Base and their guarantors allege, among other things, that the financing is void and unenforceable because it is not Sharia compliant, and counterclaim in damage for loss of profit and investment. The decision made by the High Court indicated that Maybank's application for summary judgment and counterclaim dismissal were denied. As a result of the uncertainty of the underlying Murabahah asset, the legality of Murabahah's transaction was called into question, necessitating the testimony of a Sharia expert at a full trial. Meanwhile, in the Court of Appeal, according to existing case law and Section 281 of Islamic Financial Service Act 2013, non-compliance with Sharia principles does not render a financing facility contract illegal and unenforceable, so counsel for Maybank argued that the High Court erred. The Maybank's appeal were unanimously approved by the Court of Appeal, which found substance in the reasoning given by Maybank's attorneys. The Court of Appeal granted summary judgment to Golden Base and the guarantors as requested by the High Court and dismissed the counterclaim.
So, I have now come to the end of my presentation. In conclusion, Murabahah is the most popular and most common mode of Islamic financing. This contract has been modified a little for application in the financial section. Its modern form Murabahah has become the single most popular technique of financing amongst the Islamic banks all over the world. Actually, there is no agreement based on Sharia interpretations of innovative products. Besides that, Murabahah is not a mode of financing in its origin. It is a simple sale on cost-plus basis. However, after adding the concept of deferred payment, it has been devised to be used as a mode of financing only in cases where the client intends to purchase a commodity. Finally, the best way to effect Murabahah is that the financier himself purchases the commodity directly from the supplier and after taking its delivery sells it to the client on Murabahah basis. There should be a time in which the risk of the commodity is borne by the financiers. That's all from me. Thank you so much.